Here we are at Ujiji. There, it's where Henry Morton Stanley met David Livingstone. But let me recap a bit, if I may. After the death of his wife, Livingstone went back to England, and he came out on his third journey in 1866. Well, the hunt was on now for the source of the Nile, and Livingstone came in 1866, but from 1869 to 1871 no one knew where he was. There were reports sent out by disaffected workers with him who'd gone back and said no, he was dead. And then Henry Morton Stanley, Welshman, but he was in America as a newspaper reporter. He'd taken the name of his benefactor, and the head of his newspaper, the New York Herald, met him in Paris and said, go and find Livingstone. And so he set out from Zanzibar now, fully kitted out to Tabora there, which was called Unyanyembe, and then to Ujiji. And that's where he met in 1871 David Livingstone. They then spent 4 months together going around the northern end of Lake Tanganyika to confirm that it wasn't the source of the Nile. Then Stanley wanted Livingstone to come home, but Livingstone refused, and he carried on looking and thought the Lualaba River could be the source of the Nile. But the Lualaba actually is one of the rivers that drain into the Congo basin. So that's the story, and then we know he went down in 1871, 72, 73, found Lake Mweru and Lake Bangweru, and eventually died at Chitambo's kraal, south of Lake Bangweru in 1873, found by his bed kneeling and praying. We're now at Ujiji. This is a little town on the banks of the Lake Tanganyika where Henry Morton Stanley met David Livingstone with those renowned words, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. And this is the little memorial, David Livingstone with the cross there. And Africa, under the mango tree is where they met. And Livingstone was very, very sick. Stanley had kitted out in Zanzibar and then came across with a very large contingent of men and animals and goods. And so the first thing that old David Livingstone knew was to see the American flag coming with Stanley in front. Apparently these stones came from Jericho to build this monument.
Some of the roads are, yeah, whoa, there's a feeling of what it's like to drive on these dusty roads. They're doing a lot of their work on their roads in Tanzania. And they do it really properly, it seems like. So there's big work going into this road at the moment. But it does make travelling a bit tricky. This is the sunrise in Burigi Game Reserve, taken from our van window, lying in bed as we woke up and saw this. It's very beautiful, very close to the Ugandan border. Beautiful place to camp. We wild camped here last night, just on the edge of Burigi. But when it's a bit windy and one is desperate for some hot water, boiling water for coffee, you can resort to all kinds of things as wind breaks. I think it's pretty clever. Rory trying to do this time. We've got a big gully to cross here. Here's our little brave heart. Yeah, Skiz trying to come. Wow, Skiz. Rory's nose gonna get up there, yep. And she's gonna go down. You? Well, yeah, now she's holding out a bit. No. Bar is bottoming out. Nope. Have you ever in your life seen horns like this? They are utterly amazing.
Just had a rare tyre blowout on the same tyre that the other day, which was when the wheel bearing was on fire. Has just blown out completely with a bang, and I had to really swerve. Lucky there was no other car. And here comes Brenda with most of the motor car in her hands now.
We're going to have more of the motor car in the booth than on the motor car.
Unfortunately, when it blew, it took out the mudguard of the tyre. Okay, we'll have to set that out. Okay, there's everything. Don't know why you bought a piece of tyre back.
Okay. This is our first evening in Uganda. We had a long time at the border, unfortunately, so we've just come a few k's on the road, found this little empty farm place on the side of the road, and this is where we're wild camping. Now we can see a bit better. We were sleeping last night in this little place. We're not really sure what it is or where it is, but the road was up there. We saw this little road and a fence, little gate. We're in Uganda. This is Masaka, and this gentleman is fixing that whole mudguard that came off. And we bought a new tyre, and we're swapping tyres, so we've got good front tyres on the front, and I'm off to try and buy a SIM card.
We are looking at Lake Edward. This was first discovered by Henry Morton Stanley in 1888. He also discovered Lake George and named the two after the royal family. Huge lake, beautiful lake.
This is where we're going to camp tonight. Not bad, eh? Not bad. Our campsite sitting on the edge of Lake Edward in Queen Elizabeth National Park, having a G&T in Uganda.
Here we are,
We've made it to
Uganda, nearly the equator.
the equator is about 15 k's away.
We've made it. A couple of burst tires, a couple of near accidents, a couple of getting stuck, but we're finally 16 kilometers from the equator in Queen Elizabeth National Park.
Woohoo!
Cheers.
2 more adventures on the way home. It's got a bit fed up with us because I think we're in their campsite. It's clearly, obviously, normally booked by these guys. They were with us last night as well.